from the price of the piece because of travel and other things. So sadly, nobody. It's a really big crisis, I think, this in journalism in the West. And as I say, it should be less so here because newspapers still make money here. That's a big crisis, and I don't think anybody really knows what to do about it. And what was the first question again?
First question was about how do you, the city bias in reporting.
I think you just have to recognize your bias and account for it in what you write. I mean, people have all kinds of prejudices, and reporters don't become kind of tabula rasas when they become reporters. They still carry all this stuff inside them. So I think it's important to recognize what your biases may be and try and compensate for them. You'll never reach the kind of gold standard of pure objectivity, which never exists.
What you say is very interesting, Ian, because not only are newspapers cutting down on expenses of journalists traveling to other places to report, but there's a lot of telephone journalism going on, where you just pick up the telephone, ask somebody a question, get your answers, and write a report. So this is an issue, but I want Shati to take that question.
To continue on telephone journalism, or is it?
Comment on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a chief reporter of the district department, it's my constant fear that one of the reporters have not visited the place and had just taken the story of the phone. Fortunately, even now, at least in our paper, we encourage journalists to go, and we give them expenses to actually go and cover the things and to talk. But yes, the expenses again are a constant anxiety. So there is often a tendency of we don't have even reporters, and I have like about 130 people in my team, about 80 reporters and photographers in the district, which is probably the most by any single media house. But even that leaves very large areas of the districts absolutely uncovered. And what do? You have to resort to telephone journalism. We know that we are being unfair to many, many people in that sense, but we still have to do it. But on that first question on bias, as of course we carry it within us, you were also mentioning that it's more opinion than report. One reason why this happens perhaps is since television came in, we in newspapers have become acutely aware that most of the information you have already received the day before. So the morning after, you are not really looking at the newspaper to know, for example, in a match who has won, or in an election what is the outcome. You are looking for something extra. You're looking for the meaning. You're looking for the significance. You're looking for an analysis of why this has happened and how it could be otherwise, and what does it mean now that it has happened. And those are the things that we try to give you. And that is why it may appear to you that it is more of an opinion than fact. But the fact is that even if you write straight news, it's in your very selection of what is important, and the way you start your first line, and the way you close it, and the way you argue out, which is really what you think has happened. So that, as Jack was saying, you're carrying it within you, your way of structuring a news cannot be subtracted from the facts. The facts will always come to you through a frame, which we journalists will make up for you. So I think that is that.
We'll take a couple of other questions. Okay, you.
I wish to say that even earlier and even in these days, the reporting about life of rural India, either by TV or by papers, is very negligible. Because there are very rich knowledge, rich cultural things. I heard a 6-season story by an old lady of 65 years, which was...
Very sure about this, really. When I first came in 77, 76, if you read an Indian newspaper, it was on grey newsprint, and and it had a picture on the front page of usually of a trade minister meeting a delegation in a room somewhere with flowers on the desk in a block in South Delhi. It was like reading a kind of official bulletin of a government, a lot of Indian coverage of India then. And there was the Illustrated Weekly, which treated the rest of India in a kind of exotic National Geographic kind of way. Pictures of tribal women, I remember, who didn't wear, whose breasts you could see. That was perhaps Kushwant Singh's own personal predilection. But so the great mass of India, it seemed to me, was not very well covered then. I mean, now, you may be right that it's got no better, but it does seem to me that there's such a profusion now of journalism in India, of different kinds of print journalism, that I get the impression that I do know more about rural India than I did then. Also, I think there was a great fear actually among a lot of Indian journalists who they wanted to stay in Delhi or in Bombay or Calcutta. They weren't great fans of traveling outside those places. At least the senior ones weren't. And I feel that that's gone now, that there is a kind of a more open spirit to the rest of India outside the cities. But as I say, I could well be wrong, but that's my impression.
Well, at least for vernacular newspapers, I don't think that would be quite true, because most vernacular newspapers now have many editions, many district editions. So the city edition which you have will probably not have a whole lot of news on rural areas, but the district editions will have, we for example have 11 district editions, and we would give a lot more rural news for example on agriculture or on irrigation, or on matters of animal husbandry, more in the district pages, because newspapers, when we are editing, we do go by the principle that people want news which is of use to them, of relevance to them. It's not just ideal interest. You know, it is also news which is of importance and immediate relevance to you. That is why a lot more rural news goes to the rural editions than they come to the city parts. But yes, on the whole, in principle, I agree. The challenge really is to write good stories. The challenge, and you really have to, you know, be a much, much better, more proficient, more skilled journalist to go and talk to a lady, as you were saying, a 65-year-old lady in a village, and make that article readable to a whole lot of people than a journalist who talks to a Shah Rukh Khan or a Sachin Tendulkar. Because whatever Sachin says will be read by all. But this old woman who is carrying on a tradition, her story, it's very difficult to get read by all. And frankly, we don't have enough good journalists who can do that level of journalism. That is also a truth.
Thank you. We'll bring this discussion to a close on that note, because both of you are excellent journalists, and you do bring alive instances or happenings which otherwise would seem trivial and probably on the sidelines, but you bring it to the center of our attention. Thank you, Shati, for stepping in, and thank you, Yen, for joining this discussion. Thanks a lot.
Very much. Thank you.